listening to the Successful Mind Podcast.
Successful people learn how to make their minds work for them. I'm David Nagel, and this is the Successful Mind Podcast. Hey everybody, David Nagel. Welcome to another episode of the Successful Mind Podcast. And today we have a friend and an ex-client. She just said to introduce her as Jen. I'm going to have her tell you about herself and what she does. And we're going to talk about the journey from the time that I met her kind of to where she is right now in her business and the enormous amount of change and growth and results that she's had since that time. So Jen, welcome. Would you just tell everybody who you are and what you do?
David, thank you so much for having me. This is a very full circle moment. I'm an avid listener of your podcast for many years. I think I was there when the first episode was launched. So this is such an honor. Yes, my name is Jen Gore. I'm the owner of Atlanta Personal Injury Law Group here in Georgia. And I also have a consulting business where I coach lawyer entrepreneurs how to scale their companies.
And how long have you been in business for?
I started this law firm 11 years ago, the day I got my license to practice law.
When we first met, what were the struggles that you were having in your business?
I want to say we met in 2017 or 2016. It was somewhere in that range. So we're talking, 7 years ago.
Right.
It's even hard. I don't know if people would say this to you, but it's hard to even go back to the way I was thinking back then. It was just so different. I remember a lot of the coaching that you had given me at that time was that I was very wishy-washy. I was not clear. My verbiage at that time was should, could. I was in such a state of I don't know. I can't even really fully maybe explain it. But I don't know if you remember this.
No, I do remember very well. There was a lack of confidence in the direction that you wanted in your life and as to whether you could actually have it or not. Which
was so strange because I was a very driven person really my whole life. And I saw myself as a driven person. I mean, I went to law school. I moved across country somewhere far away from my family. I had big dreams my whole life, really, very ambitious, but yet I didn't own it, was kind of how I could explain it. And then I was really trying to break free from a lot of limiting beliefs that I did not even realize that I had absorbed. And they were really not in congruence with my true self. So I think that's you have your true nature and then you have all this stuff that's covering over it, which it doesn't add up.
Right. And would you say that going into business for yourself started to bring out those different vulnerabilities that you had?
Oh, I mean, personal development, going into business is the greatest personal development undertaking you can ever go through. It's going to bring up all your triggers, all your weak points. It's going to bring up all of your fears. And so I think one of the teachings that Arjan taught and then you taught was that you have to professionally develop on the personal development side for your business to continue to be able to expand. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like we get the business that we deserve, right? And it was the same thing when I started working with Arjan. He was completely broke. He had basically lost everything. Allie had gotten sick. He was taking care of her by her bedside, for a year plus. And he had to start all over. And his confidence was just wrecked at where he was.
Yeah. I mean, business will uncover, all the areas you need to grow. But for me at that time, I had two young kids, very young children. I was struggling to grow my company. And not to say that I wasn't growing it. I wanted to grow it faster. I was impatient. And I had a lot of like mom guilt. I think a lot of our sessions initially were around this like dealing with the judgment of people, or my perceived perception that people were judging me because I was working and a mom. And what was challenging at that time is I loved working, and that was really my true nature. And I was absorbing or perceiving that people were uncomfortable with that, or they didn't like that, or something was off with that. And I don't know if you remember this, but that was like a really big stopping point for me. And even how I would discuss my business or how much I would tell people, I wasn't really clear on being unapologetic about who I am.
Right. And yes, I remember it very well. And here's the thing, there was some truth to it.
Oh yeah, I wasn't owning it. I wasn't like, this is what it is, guys. This is who I am. And my kids were designed to be exactly who they are as my kids. And this is, I remember one time you said to me, what if their journey is connected to your journey? And like my kids' experience of me being an entrepreneur was actually like part of their story. And I also think at that time I was in a bad environment, and I don't know if I want to use the word bad, but I was in an environment where I wasn't around people that were doing a lot better than me.
Yeah.
So I was like standing out and like the outsider. And you taught me a lot about how your environment impacts your thinking.
When it comes to, so now we're looking 7-8 years in reverse, right? Can you see how your journey is directly connected to your kids' journey? Is that more visible for you now?
Absolutely. And after the work I did with you, I went on to hire a parenting coach. And I did like 3 years of work with a parenting coach that was really intensive. And what I came to the conclusion really in parenting was that I wasn't clear on what my criteria was for being an amazing, great parent. I had kind of absorbed what society had said and all these kind of like fragments. And I didn't have like a clear criteria. And so I had to develop my own criteria of what I thought it meant to be an amazing parent. And then once I developed that criteria and I lived based on my view of that, I found a lot of relief from the suffering that I had been enduring.
Yeah. I've always been of the belief, well, I shouldn't say always, ever since I started studying and growing myself, that a lot of the negative problems that happen with children or kids that are children of entrepreneurial parents comes directly from the negativity that they hold around it. They don't know how to get past the shame and the guilt and the idea of selfishness. And they communicate almost a guilt and a shame to the children about what they've chosen for their life, instead of boldly standing in it and being proud of like, yes, I'm a woman, I'm mom, I'm a wife, I'm all of these different things, and I'm proud to be it, and I work at all of these things, and I want you to be proud of me, and I'm proud of you.
Correct.
And giving them a much different foundation to think of, growing up.
Yeah. The narrative you tell your kids about your life matters. And I think the energy that you bring to whatever you do matters. So if you're coming, like, just give an example, if I was to go on a business trip and I would say, oh, I have to go on a business trip, I'm really stressed, I'm not going to see you for all weekend, I'm going to be upset. that is injecting anxiety and stress into my children. I instead say, guys, I'm getting to go on this exciting trip where I get to talk about things that I love. And, one day when you're older, you're going to get to come and travel the world with me and get to speak on stages and see all the amazing stuff I get to do. And my life is so exciting. And I hope one day that you get to live your purpose too. That's a very different energy.
Very different energy.
So my kids think like I'm a superhero, I think. They think like I live an incredible life, and I think I give them permission to live their own dreams. And I'm very careful to inject any negative energy around my working.
Yeah. And they get to experience the positivity of you being gone from the house.
I just had a conversation. I have an 11-year-old daughter. And I grew up with a mom who did not really work outside the home. So this is like this is a different experience, right?
Yeah.
So I've been having like much deeper conversations with her at 11 years old. And the other day I said, I think I asked her, I said, how do you feel about, the work that I do? And she literally, I think I did a story on it, and she was like, Mom, you're amazing. You helped me see that there's things I can do that I didn't think I could do. And like, really, she was very positive about my life and what I do. And it was like a full circle moment, because I think when she was a baby, that's when I used to think like, and looking back, I feel like a lot of those fears didn't really come from me. They came from society, or, I had a mom that made the decision to stay at home. So her number one value was women should be at home.
Right.
And so unfortunately, that was not my purpose in the world. So that had kind of a negative effect on me subconsciously.
Yeah, and just think about that for a second. And for anybody who's listening to this, if you're a parent, if you were raised in an environment where your parents' value was that mom stayed home, and it was mom stayed home, period, then any alternative idea of how to be a mom and a parent would be automatically made wrong.
Correct.
Because you're not staying home. So now either they're making you wrong, or society's making you wrong, or you're making yourself wrong because you have a value conflict going on the inside. I want to be a great parent, but I've also got this value that I've got from mom that says if I'm not staying home, I'm not a great parent. So which is it?
And that's kind of the state of confusion that I came to you in. Like, I was like, David, which one of these is true? Yes. And you gave me the freedom to decide for myself, which was a novel idea.
Yeah, but you did.
Yeah. And now, you know what I will tell you? I coach and lead tons of women around the country on this issue. And I know that why it was my issue is because I was meant to have an opinion and a voice about this to liberate other people. And I don't really experience any mom guilt. I know that's very hard to believe for a lot of women, but sure. I do not experience it. I felt I've slayed that dragon, and I feel very centered in the way I lead my life around working and having kids. And I wish that freedom for so many people.
Absolutely. And I women are very fortunate if they get to meet you and learn those lessons from you in pursuing their own dreams, because it has always been something that I've been exposed to since I started my business 26 years ago, which I didn't know I was going to run into when I started, because my original intention was I could show people how to make a lot of money in their business really, really quick. And of course, the more I learned, the more that expanded. But one of the things that we ran headfirst into was the tremendous amount of guilt and shame that parents, and especially mothers, had around the idea of working and following a dream and having children at the same time, and being able to overcome it and really be happy and have great, healthy kids that are following their passion in their dreams.
Well, there was a lot of things that you said to me over the years and some of my other coaches that really stood out in my mind. And I think one of them was, why would you have this incredible ambition and desire and ability if you were not meant to use it?
Correct.
And I used to think about, what about the astronauts, or just think about people that are doing really unique jobs. Like, do you think their kids have an exactly quote unquote normal life?
No.
Probably not. It's
No.
this like breaking free from being like quote unquote normal.
Right. And this normal life, like I'll bet you everybody has an idea of exactly what that means when you just say that generic term, normal life. If we look at that and you say, where did that actually start? You'll find that it started right around World War II, and marketing campaigns for families as GIs were coming home from the war and people were building families, and we were expanding as a country, also in other Western countries at the same time. It did not exist that way before then. Everybody worked. Everybody participated. The kids as well. As soon as they could work to participate for the family, it was something that people learned right from birth.
Yeah, kids were working on farms. Kids were working. I mean, yeah, we kind of lose track of all the history of time that our perspective is so limited. And I don't know. I think that for women, it just goes back to deciding, hey, I'm going to live life on my own terms. And then deciding what those terms are. And as long as you're there, like, there's no one else that you need to owe an explanation to.
Right. What about the pressure from other women?
That was a big factor at the time. And then I realized I had to find a new tribe of people. And a lot of my friends I met through How to Manage and through the David Nagel community, and just other seekers or people that were like me. There's tons of people out there. If you're limiting yourself just to your neighborhood or just to your town, you may have a harder time finding your tribe.
Right. That's one of the things that I always try to impress upon people when they find me and they want help from me, right? I'm typically not dealing with teenagers that are turning into adults. It's usually 30 plus. Occasionally I'll get somebody in their 20s, but usually it's 30 plus. And they wake up one day and they go, is this all there is? Right? They probably have started a family. They've started a career. They've got a little bit of experience. They start seeing the way the world's working and they're like, oh, hell no. Like there's got to be more than just this supposed ideal package that I was given that I'm now finding out I'm absolutely miserable in. Sometimes it's exciting in the beginning because it's your first taste of freedom and you get to decorate your own house or your apartment, or you start making some choices on your own, but then it turns into monotony. And you're not expressing yourself. So I'll say one of the biggest challenges you have is, how do I turn that ship around now that I'm aware of it? Because I do have the responsibilities, right? I had the kid, I've got the marriage, I've got the mortgage, maybe I started a business. Now I got to figure out a way to actually turn this around. And part of it, a big part of it, is who do you surround yourself with that will support you in making those turns, versus people that are constantly harassing you about how they don't agree with what it is that you're choosing for your life. I think it makes all the difference in the world.
And you used to say, if you became wildly successful, who would be not happy for you?
Yes.
And I think that's a good starting point because you already know a couple people. I mean, I hesitate to say the truth here, which is like, if you told me all the things I would have to do and all the people I would have to leave behind to get to where I am now, I don't know that I would have been available to hear that at the time. I mean, Would you have been?
No, I wouldn't have. And I totally understand where you're coming from. And the truth is it is different for every person. It doesn't mean every person is going to have that. But there is a significant truth to the idea that and here's the thing, the problem isn't with you. You're doing what you came here in life to do. You're following your purpose, you're following your dream. But if your surroundings, family surroundings or friends, social groups are stuck and want everything to stay the same, you're going to go from having everything in common to having nothing in common.
Nothing in common.
Right, nothing in common.
Which starts to create conflict.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That's when it begins to become a threat in the life of the person that is watching you succeed and having to live with the choices that they've made, not to do anything different. Not to necessarily say that those choices are wrong, but human nature being what it is it stirs the pot. And if they don't have the maturity enough to be good with somebody being different, right? Accepting the difference between people, then they're going to counter that, right? They're not going to be good with it. And then you have the conflict. Yeah.
I mean, and then you get accused of, well, like you're the one that changed. Yeah. I mean, I never agreed to stay the same forever.
Right.
I'm on a journey of constant growth, constant change. And then coming to terms with like, okay, not everyone has that same goal. It's tough. Personal development is very, very difficult. It's some of the most difficult work you can actually do. Changing your limiting beliefs, becoming aware of your limiting beliefs. But what I really appreciated with my work with you is like, I would ask you a question and a lot of times you would lead me to the point that I was asking the wrong question. Or you used to tell me, you're difficult to coach, Jen. Because I would negotiate. Well, what about this? So what about can't we go? Like, I wouldn't want to accept the truth, right?
Yes.
Do you find that with a lot of people you're coaching?
Yes. And it does make it difficult to coach a person because what they're doing is they're changing the playing field when the playing field hasn't actually changed, right? So you know all about the universal laws. I've taught you all about that. And the universal laws are 100% right in every situation until you make a situation up. Because once you make a situation up, you're trying to find why it won't work instead of the fact that it actually will work in every situation. But if I take a reality and I start moving the needle to things that aren't true just because I can, right? Then you're going to find out, well, you're going to be like, okay, this doesn't work. But there's a good representation of asking the wrong question, right? Why are you trying to find why it won't work? Why not just apply this to your actual reality and let's see what the positive result is on the other side?
Yeah, I think when people are struggling with an issue, I've kind of learned over the years that you just have to actually take a step forward in some direction, because just analyzing it to death, like you won't really make any progress. Like nope. That's like the worst place to be in is when you're stuck. Whether it's, you're stuck making a business decision, or you have to leave a friendship behind, or you have to do something really outside your comfort zone. I think it's the limbo that's more painful than the actual decision.
Yeah, no question about it. And you know that what you've experienced this, obviously, when you make the decision, that feels totally different.
Yeah. Again, like you have more information once you make that decision, that it's not available to you yet until you would make the decision, right?
Right. That's the law of cause and effect. When I make a decision, I am creating a causation that's going to have an effect. When I get that effect, I can then analyze from there whether or not it was the right decision or what other information I may need to move forward.
Yeah, I feel like throughout my life, I've run into, in the last 10 years, really, really difficult situations, whether they're in business, sometimes you run into a business situation that seems like, I don't know how to navigate it. Like where do you go? Or I've run into hiring issues, or I've run into just even obstacles. I remember when I was buying my personal home, I wanted this house and I didn't know how I was going to make the money show up. But when you have a framework with these universal laws, and you have somebody in your life, whether it's a mentor or a coach or somebody to hold you to the realities of those laws, that framework has served me so much. Like, it's the thing I always go back to. I'm sure you probably feel this way too. It's like, once you have that foundation, there's no issue you can't really face.
Right. Right. Well, part of that idea is we were given incorrect information about our journey through life to begin with. We're taught from a very young age, it's not okay to make mistakes. Get it right the first time. Do it right the first time. Don't make mistakes. Then we get that all through school. We get it through college. We get it in our early working environment. Somebody works at McDonald's or Walgreens, or, they're babysitting or whatever. Don't make mistakes. Don't make mistakes. Don't make mistakes. And then incorporated within those mistakes is the idea of shame and guilt. You should feel bad about what you did. You cost us a lot of money. You wasted a bunch of time, whatever. So a person internalizes that as negative, which then it plays off of a person's core fear, which is abandonment. I won't be loved. I'm not worth anything, and people will leave me. So that gets in. The fundamental of that starts in the first year of life, and then it expands as we go through our childhood. And here's the fix. It's like you cannot grow in life without mistakes. There are no mistakes. There's only lessons.
I 100% agree with you. And I'm so glad you brought up the unlovable and the unworthy. That was a lesson that has stayed with me for my whole life. And the understanding that that's our deepest fear, like how you see that show up in your life. In addition, with my kids, every night when they go to bed, I tell them, you are loved and you are worthy, as my nightly subconscious priming.
Yeah.
And speaking into them always about their, the truth, which is that they are unlimited, that they have all the potential in the world, and that they are deeply loved and worthy without having to do anything beyond being. And I know that that is something that will have an effect on them, how they view themselves.
Yeah, because somebody believes that truth in them. If you remember me saying to people, if you don't believe you can do it, believe in my belief.
I remember you saying that, and I've seen you say that to so many people, and they literally look stunned when you say it.
Yeah. I looked stunned too, Jen, when somebody said it, when Proctor said it to me, because I didn't believe in myself. And that was the first time I came face to face with the truth that I didn't believe in myself. And it's like he's reaching out a hand going, I believe in you because I know something that you don't know about yourself. Trust me.
I know before the pandemic, you used to have a lot of in-person events, and I've been to several in-person events, and I wish one day you'll have those again, because they were really almost like a religious, spiritual experience. I can't even fully express what those were like. Like seeing people have breakthroughs was almost as impactful as having your own breakthrough. People used to get up to the microphone, and we were all in these rooms, and they would ask you, this is the best. I always tell this story. They would ask something like, David, why, can I not do this or that? Some arbitrary question. And then you would be like, who as a child told you you were unlovable? And it would come so far out of like, they were like, well, I didn't ask that question. You know? And like, you just cut straight down to the bone of the issue. And you could see them physically like having, you know, breakthroughs in that moment. And people's lives were forever changed in that room. So, man, just incredible to watch you at work.
Yeah, we are. We're gonna be doing live events again next year. There's a lot of changes going on. So once we're done with those, we're gonna go back to doing some live events. So what's next for you in your life, in your business?
So in the last probably 4 years, I had started to have a desire to coach and help people. And I think I had been consuming so many coaching services, your services, so many business coaching services, parenting coaching. And I was like really drawn to the coaching world. And then I had this like belief that I could not coach people myself. I don't know where I got that belief. Maybe it's like you feel like, oh, I'm not qualified enough. I have to do 25,000 things. And then at one point, someone started calling me and saying like, will you please just coach me? I need your help now. I have like a law firm that has like 40 people. I coach a lot of people that have law firms. Maybe they're 20 people, 15 people, 10 people. And I literally had like someone email me and say like, I will give you money. I don't know what you're doing, but will you coach me? And I was like, okay, I'll just give this a try, you know?
Yeah.
And then it just kind of expanded and expanded and expanded so organically. And, you know, now I'm coaching like 12 law firms around the US, and it's some of the most rewarding. I'm sure as you believe as a coach yourself, you learn so much from your students, which is something I didn't anticipate. And you can see your own nonsense in other people.
Yep.
You know, like, oh, I know exactly what that is because, you know,
because I do it.
And you really don't know what you know until you can teach it.
Yeah.
So it's been really, really, really amazing. I feel like through that, I've been, you know, out there on social media. We won one of the best social media law firms in the US this past year, which this is not even a topic that we talked about, but in the beginning of my business, I was accused a lot of hiding. And you used to say to me, like, why are you hiding? Like, what I wouldn't put myself on the billboards. I was always in the background. And it's amazing how this is like really changed because now I'm so out there. I'm like literally one of the most known females in personal injury legal advertising now because I've like leaned into it and gotten over my fear of being seen.
Yeah.
And that has like transformed my company and then brought in so many opportunities. Like I wrote a book last year. I've been on so many podcasts. I started speaking around the country on stages. Like that fear of being seen was stopping me from really stepping into all the things that were meant for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So where are you going with it? You know,
we're building and, you know, I have a vision for having something a little more intentional. This has been very organic. And what we want to do is put on like our own event. And I just want to continue really helping. I originally thought I was going to only help women. But what's been interesting is that I've been helping tons of men. And I really realized I just love driven entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And I do feel like I have a lot to help people with in terms of, you know, all the work that you've taught me, all the work that some of my other coaches, I remember something you said is sometimes people have to hear it through different vehicles.
Yes.
Like I used to say to you, David, you're already teaching this, or someone's already teaching this. Why should there be another teacher?
Yeah.
And you would say, well, Bob used to say, someone needs to hear it. Like your story, David, is so inspiring to people who are like, I know so many blue collar workers that when they see your journey, they're like, that's possible for me,
Yeah.
because you're the vehicle that they needed to hear that from. Right.
Right.
So, yeah, I want to continue spreading the good messages that you've taught me and other people have taught me. And I think, the sky's really the limit.
For sure. Definitely. There, the idea is that you came into this lifetime to fulfill a purpose. The purpose was here before you came here. And whatever that purpose is, part of all of our collective purpose is to help one another in some way. So there's people here that uniquely will only be able to hear something from you. You'll be a divine part of their life, a spiritual aspect to what they can hear and what helps shift in them to go to the next level. And you're uniquely designed to do that with those individuals, right? And there's an abundance. There's more than enough, right? People always say to me, coaching is, saturated or whatever. It's like, are you kidding me? Have you looked around the world? I mean, there's, it's not even in its infancy compared to what's going to be needed out there over the next few years.
Yeah, there's so many people that need this type of work and exposure to this type of work. And even when I listen to Bob and when I listen to you, I hear different things. Like everyone puts their own spin on the material and the message. And yeah, if you're somebody that's interested in coaching, like don't allow yourself to believe there's no space for you.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. That was a fantastic story. And that's going to inspire a lot of people. How can people get a hold of you if they want to talk to you about coaching or they want to talk to you about legal stuff? How do they get a hold of you?
My email is jennifer@atlinjurylawgroup.com. You can find me on all the social medias, Jennifer Gore. We have a website for the coaching business. It's called Evergreen, and I'll send that information over to you. You can put it in the show notes, but okay. I'm super easy to find on the internet. I'm not hiding.
Yes, because you're out there everywhere. Yes, you won awards for being seen in the world. That's fantastic. Jen, I really appreciate you. Thanks for doing this. It's been a pleasure.
David.
Thanks for listening to the Successful Mind Podcast. If you like what you heard and you want to learn more, go to lifeisnowinc.com. I'll see you next week.